Okay, communication in general is a part of life. It's necessary for survival. I mean, to get basic needs like food or water, you gotta communicate those needs. However, interpersonal communication is essential for a successful life. You see, it helps to build trust with other people, to make connections. Let's face it, a happier life is lived when you have people to share it with. And how do you get that? By making friends, which means communicating on more of an interpersonal level with those friends. You see it everywhere. You see it with, just going to work. You see it going to school. I mean, you take a group of teenage girls hanging out in the mall with their friends. In fact, you even see it in television. You see it all over with the reality TV shows. Like Big Brother, for example, which the very idea of surviving in the game is being able to interpersonally communicate with one another and to make friends and build trust. In fact, Big Brother, you take 16 house guests. The whole point is to survive living in a house for 3 months with people you've never met before. You've got to be able to trust them. They got to be able to trust you, especially since one by one they vote to evict somebody from the house. More often than not, they're going to vote for somebody to leave that they don't trust or don't want living around. There was one episode in particular that showed just how important making friends is to the show and what can happen when those friendships are destroyed. It's not pretty. To recap the episode, house guests Nicole and Christine won the HOH competition. They got to be the one to decide who gets to stay and who's going to go home. It's an important part of power for the show. Now, fearing for his own safety because, well, he made an enemy out of Nicole, Frankie decides the best thing he can do is turn on his friends. Probably not a good idea. He goes up to Nicole and says, hey, you need to put these guys up for nominees because, well, they're working against you. So it's like, yay, turn on your friends. So, hey, yeah, get rid of my friends to keep me safe. Like, that's really going to work out for anybody. His friends find out about Frankie's betrayal, and what do? They turn on him. In fact, they work out a deal with Nicole and say, look, you put one of us up against Frankie for nominations. We throw the next competition, which, a Battle of the Block, that competition determines, who actually stays nominated for eviction and who ends up safe. It's like, so they say, look, you put Frankie up next to one of us. We make sure we lose. We stay on next to him so he can leave the house next week. Because, let's face it, none of us trust him anymore. And Nicole holds true to her word on that. She nominates Caleb, which is one of the people Frankie turned on, and Frankie for eviction, the other HOH, head of household. Christine nominates Zach and Donnie. That's kind of predictable. She never actually let on that she was going to do anything different. And kind of irrelevant. It's material that happened. And anyway, they go on. They play Battle of the Block. Frankie thinks everything is good. Caleb's one of his friends after all. They've got this competition down. They're both coming up safe. And his best friend Zach is going to be the one going home. So he thinks. But then they get to the Battle of the Block competition, which turns out to be this football game in which you gotta pull chains up to get the ball to go specifically where you want it to go. It really requires the use of 2 people. But Caleb, having made that deal with Nicole and really hurt by Frankie's trust, decides he's not going to play the game with Frankie. He sits it out. In fact, tells Frankie that he's getting what he deserves. So Frankie's playing this game by himself. Donnie and Zach are working together. The odds are looking like it's in Donnie and Zach's favor. Although with a shocking turn of events, Frankie actually manages to play the game by himself and wins. And yeah, the episode concludes with Frankie celebrating his short-lived victory. So, making friends, it's the key to success in the show. Because making friends, building those friendships, it builds trust. And when the other players playing the game trust you in a house where deception is expected, you're more likely to be safe than if they think, oh, these people are gunning for me, they're going to turn on me. If you're not trusted, you get voted out, you lose the game. Now, who are you going to trust? Your friends, your enemies. You make friends, you build trust. In the stages of friendship mentioned in the textbook, they're evident throughout the entire series of Big Brother. Stage 1, limited interaction, engaging in small talk, and only sharing minimal amounts of information with one another. That's pretty much what you see in the first couple of episodes of every season of Big Brother. The house guests just meet each other, they mingle, they get to know each other a little bit, but it's like meeting a stranger, you don't really talk to them that much. Although, you gotta talk a little bit. You've gotta interact with people. Because the one who does the least amount of interacting in the Big Brother is usually the first one to go home. Now, stage 2, friendly relations. In this stage, people discover that they have common interests. Christine, it's evident with Christine and Nicole. They started to bond a little bit because they were both, the nerdy girls with glasses. They didn't fit in with the rest of the model type females in the show. And, a friendship was starting to form there because of it. Now, Derek and Cody, they found a common interest in winning the game. And decided they were going to work together from day 2. To, do everything they can to make sure they both get as far as they can. In my opinion, it worked out pretty well for them. Now, stage 3, the moves toward friendship. Self-disclosure comes out in small amounts. But it's coming out. People are bonding, they're starting to become friends. Christine and Nicole began to share details about their lives with one another. I mean, you could see a friendship forming there. As did Frankie and Zach and Seth. The more you talk to a person, the more you get to know them, the more likely a friendship is going to occur. And, Derek and Cody, they decided they were going to work together. And in working together, they started talking to one another more, and they grew closer too. You see it everywhere in the show. Now, stage 4, like, friends begin to grow close to one another and start participating in activities with one another. You could see that clearly with Frankie and Zach. They became inseparable. You saw them cuddling with one another, sleeping next to each other, telling secrets. I mean, they became known as Zanky because they were inseparable. In stage 5, it stabilized friendship. Friends are communicating fully with one another. They're sharing private information with one another. I mean, at this point, friends are so close, they're kind of like family. You know, like me and my best friend are. We consider ourselves sisters. Or each other sisters, anyway. Derek and Cody reached that stage, and it led them to be able to strategize together, as well as share information that they gathered from the rest of the house. The closer they got, the more they trusted each other. The more they trusted each other, the more they worked together. And it got them pretty far. Now, stage 5, you don't want to hit this stage. That would be the waning, like the waning stage for friendship. A breach of trust starts to pull the friendship apart. Yeah, you could see it clearly in the episode that I recently watched. Frankie betrayed all his friends, even Zach, which means Zanky was no more. I was kind of disappointed in that. And once word got back to Zach that Frankie betrayed him, they weren't able to work together anymore. Not fully, not the way they did. Because they didn't trust each other. And you can't be friends with somebody if you don't trust them. Now, how does developing friendships form winning strategies in the game? It helps to build trust in a house full of deception. People are less likely to vote a person out of Big Brother if they trust him or her. You know, everybody's paranoid that they're being deceived. If they believe, oh, this person has my back, but this person doesn't, which one are they going to vote to leave? Many people have lost the game based on the fact that they can't be trusted. Which means, you know, not only build friendships with people, keep those friendships. Keep that trust going. Because Derek and Cody won the game this season. Why? Because they started a friendship day 2. They worked together. They put each other's needs before their own. And it got them to be the final 2 of the game. Now, how does the destruction of friendship hurt gameplay? Breaking friendships breaks trust. Big Brother can be a kill or be killed kind of game. So if a person isn't trusted, they're voted out. They lose. Like, friendships among the players were broken up, and their game went with it. Take Nicole and Christine, for example. They were doing well, but once they turned on each other, it wasn't long after that that the rest of the house turned on them. They were gone. Frankie and Zach, the same thing. They controlled the house. They dominated the game until they turned on one another. Once their friendship went, so did their strategy. Conclusion would be basic communication skills are essential to survive, but building interpersonal relationships is essential to living a successful life. I mean, you can survive without talking to people, but are you really living? And it's clear that in games like Big Brother, if you want to win $500,000 in a game that involves communicating with people, you better get good at it. Because if you don't make friends in the game, much like in life, you're not going to succeed.